Hey there! Welcome to Retro Reloaded. I'm your host Lance, and each week I tackle a retro game shaped by your picks. If you want a chance to choose next week's game or unlock exclusive bonus episodes and polls, join me on Patreon at patreon.com/retroreloaded. There's even a free tier to dip your toes in. Big thanks for all of your love and support. It means the world to me. Now let's hit the start button and reload those retro vibes.
History of the Legend of Dragoon. Released in Japan in 1999 and North America in 2000 by Sony Computer Entertainment, The Legend of Dragoon was PlayStation's ambitious attempt to rival the likes of Final Fantasy. Helmed by director Yasuyuki Hasebe, this turn-based RPG stood out for its innovative addition combat system and cinematic Dragoon transformations. Despite mixed reviews at launch, it's grown into a cult classic celebrated for its deep lore, memorable characters, and stunning pre-rendered visuals. Plot of The Legend of Dragoon. Set in the war-torn world of Endiness, the story follows Dartfeld, a young warrior on a quest for revenge against the disastrous black monster that demolished his hometown. Joined by a diverse cast, like the Fierce Rose and the Loyal Levitts, Dart discovers the legacy of the Dragoons, ancient warriors able to harness the power of dragons. Through 4 epic discs, players unravel a tale of fate, betrayal, and the rebirth of ancient evils.
All right, with all that out of the way, we got 2 special guests here today. My first guest, you all know him. He's been on the podcast several times. Wabiert, welcome back.
Hi, Lance.
Hi, buddy. Glad to see you. And then our new guest is going to be Drew Universe. Do you like to go by Drew Universe or just Drew? Or
Drew's fine.
Drew's fine. Hi, welcome to the podcast. So Drew is a special guest because they basically have not, I keep calling it a mod because it's not a mod, and they've corrected me very much on it, but it's actually a port. You've been working on a port, and it's for The Legend of Dragoon. And basically, you are very, very into this game. Like you love this game. Is it your favorite game of all time?
Yes, I like other games better nowadays, but it's my grandfathered all-time favorite.
Okay, wow. So, how long have you been working on this port?
Basically, since it became open source. I don't do any coding myself. I do the platforming, make sure it gets visible. I wrestle with the algorithms on social media. But that was December of 2020 is when Monoxide said he was going to do it, and we all said, sure you are, because we were used to ports, reverse engineering just being really hard and difficult, and that's why we have emulation standard and not reverse engineered ports. But he came back less than 2 years later. So short answer is August 2022. It was playable. He said it's playable, and then we started building a small team, and I signed on to name the program as well as give it some visibility.
Yeah.
Well, quick question, Drew.
Go ahead.
Explain this like I'm 5. What is it exactly that you guys work towards achieving?
It starts with basic quality of life stuff. For example, bug fixes and faster loading times. That's the first joy of having a port is when you're emulating things, no matter how powerful your PC is, it's still the same load times. So that's a really nice quality of life aspect, considering that LOD has lots of long loading screens, black transitions when you're coming in and out of battle and out of cutscenes and FMVs. It really cuts down the time because it's already a very long RPG. And if you only want those things, that's great, but you can also take that much, much further. It makes customizations and other quality of life things really easy to develop. It makes modding way more feasible, and you can do way more things with it. So there's no reason not to, so long as you have someone who has the skill of a senior software engineer and the time to put into it.
Oh, cool. So just to get it out of the way, my most recent playthrough with this that I just went through as much as I could was actually like a ROM hack version. It was I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but fixes some translation errors, fixes some inventory stuff, and then just a couple of minor things that make it just a little bit quicker. Doesn't change the whole entire game, but just made it a little bit better. The inventory one especially, because I remember hating it. We'll get to that. But we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Yeah. So in this port is called Severed Chains. Am I correct? That's the name of it?
Yes, it's called Severed Chains, named after the intro quote you can see in that intro FMV that plays before the title screen comes up. It says, "You are free to sever the chains of fate that bind you." So I called it Severed Chains, and for our splash screen, I convinced Monoxide to let me put in a modified version of that quote. "We are free to sever the chains of fate that bind us." So it's kind of a multi-symbolic meaning that we're breaking the chains that we're normally used to with emulation, going well beyond that. The sky's the limit now.
Wow, the dedication and passion in that, the title alone is just like that. Commend, man. Commendations from me.
How many?
We were almost going to go with a more simple name, Reloaded.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can relate to that. Yeah. Retro Reloaded. Hey, it's a good name. How many people are working on this port? And just to clarify for people, it's a port to PC, just to make sure they know.
Yes, if you're on Windows, Mac, or Linux, as well as Steam Deck and Steam Deck-like devices. The team is generally half a dozen people, roughly. We have one-offs here and there that help with random things.
Now, I mean, you said you're not an engineer, but I can imagine you talk with the engineers a lot. I'm assuming it's incredibly hard to bring something from the PS1, get into all the code, and be able to, like, I don't know, like, be able to translate it over.
It almost?
Yeah. It's rigorous and difficult and time consuming, I'm assuming.
Yeah, if it's your first time reverse engineering a video game, like a console video game, it starts out been taking a long time and it's difficult and you don't know what anything does. And you just kind of have to figure out where certain commands start and end so you can isolate that as a specific thing, because it's just a bunch of code, contiguous when you're just looking at the raw data. That's a very simplified version. But what he had to do is Monoxide had to reverse engineer it into MIPS assembly, which is a very ugly language, and then reconvert it into Java and then start modernizing bits of code because the way the game was running on PS1, there were a lot of bugs and spaghetti code and errors that the PS1 was designed to, let slide, if you will. But running on, modern well-coded software, there were errors all over the place, and then we had to suddenly fix all of those. It's a whole process.
Okay. Nice. Wow. And so have you ever, I always hear these horror stories by companies like Nintendo or something where they're like, how dare you, like, basically make our game come back to life, how dare you, like, bring more light to, because in my opinion, when people do this kind of stuff where they bring these old games back to life, it's actually a good thing. And it brings it, like, actually, it does exactly what I was saying. It brings it back to life. A game that basically has been dead for years. There's no, there hasn't been a remake. There hasn't been, like, is there like an HD remaster even? I don't even know. And basically these, these passionate players that used to enjoy this game, it's amazing. So, like, have you ever heard, basically my question is, nothing's ever come of, like, Sony being like, hey, yo, like, what are you doing? Or have you ever heard of anything like that happening in your realm of work?
A little bit. With us, not directly. If they know about us, they haven't said anything. We kind of assume they know about us by now because we've gotten quite a bit of visibility. We were on PC Gamer, I think it was about a year ago. So I'd be surprised if they don't know about us, but we haven't gotten any contact about it as of yet. And I'm very careful about that because I walked into this already having a cease and desist letter on my back. When I was younger, I was about 18. I was a naive, gamer. And at the time, I was doing a dumb little YouTube campaign for LODers. And a bunch of people came forward and we didn't know what to do. Like, I was so dumb about it, I called it a support group instead of a community. So it probably sounded like we needed help. Okay. But the thing was, we were just, writing down ideas. There was, 10 pencils at once in a group Skype chat that we had. It was so silly. But there was that passion, that raw passion. And we didn't really end up doing anything too specific. And after a number of months, one of the people in the group made a custom Virage model. It's one of the ancient enemies in Legend of Dragoon. It was untextured. They sent it. We thought it looked cool. We had trouble figuring out how to open it at first because it was made in Maya. But I happened to be doing some level editing. I was trying to learn how to do level editing in Unreal Tournament 2004. I had the Editor's Choice Edition with 60 hours of dry tutorials. So I was already moving objects and light, seeing if I could make my own map. I thought, hey, I'll throw this Virage in one of the maps and just call that a different map. And I made a YouTube video of it where it was just standing, this tall Virage, untextured as a statue. I shot it with some rockets. That would count as like a legal mod today. But I got a cease and desist letter for that. So Sony is clearly willing to protect their IP. And I wanted to make sure that we're very careful about that, because with other reverse engineering projects, to finish the answer, some other reverse engineering ports will get shut down, particularly if they're offering the copyrighted game assets, whether it's individual assets or the entire ROM. So we require, that people supply their own legal backups, get a $20 CD external drive, plug it into your computer, rip your disks, because we don't want to get in any trouble. Keeps the program able to exist out in the open and public instead of underground.
Yeah, you guys don't provide the actual game. You're just providing basically, a way to play it on your PC or what your Steam Deck or whatever you said.
Technically, when a port comes out officially, it's the whole game, obviously, because they have the rights to do that. But in the case of FanWorks, the port will just be a revised engine.
Right.
So what you're playing will be a revised engine that just runs the game better, actually can take advantage of your computer's resources, so you can get, 4K resolution, 60 FPS, and all these other juicy things.
I'm really surprised that they sent you that cease and desist or whatever.
Me too.
I can't. Yeah, I'm like, that's weird to me, but I know that some of these companies, Nintendo's obviously the big example because they do it all the time. They just get so scared that they're going to lose any type of revenue, at all, from these like fan-made ports or mods or whatever. And it just kind of blows my mind because it's not like they've made anything recent that would compete with, that would be like, okay, you're either playing this port or you're playing this, their new game. There's nothing like that they have that would even remotely resemble like that kind of competition. So I don't understand why they do that stuff like that sometimes. I mean, I know they're just I think they're being proactive. They're like, well, we don't really care whether we're going to lose revenue or not. We're just going to make sure it doesn't happen because maybe it will, maybe it won't. We're not going to take the chance. So they just send it out. I don't agree with it. I don't know if you guys heard about the whole Stop Killing Games campaign. I actually kind of want to do a podcast episode on that, but I'm with that campaign. I agree with it. We won't really get into that too much because that's a whole egg to unravel, but
they got my signature.
Right. Yeah. And that's not even a phrase. I don't think egg to unravel is a phrase, is it? But like it's an egg to unravel, but yeah, I hope it goes through. I really do. So anyways,
same.
So Drew, how did you first get into this game? Can you tell me like your first experiences? Like, did you play it back in the day on the PS1? Like, when did you get into Legend of Dragoon?
Yeah, I was involved at launch just by chance. I was a kid. Almost all of us were kids at the time. You'd see it at those demo stations. Sometimes they would be a nice demo station where it was kind of near eye level, at least for a kid. And sometimes it was a evil demo station where the TV was like at the top of the aisle and you have to crane your neck up really high.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
I've played a lot of those, but I think in this case, I was at a Toys R Us, and that's a store in North America, if anyone doesn't know that. And it actually had a TV kind of at eye level for kids, so it wasn't too bad. And I was playing probably one of the Jam Pack or PlayStation Underground demo discs. I don't know which one it was, but it had a thumbnail image of these like winged warriors, and I was like, "Ooh, what's that?" And I was like, "What's a dragoon? Let's click on that." And so I, pressed the X button, and the rest is history, I guess. But wow. That's how it started for me. I don't remember asking for it. I don't remember most of my past, but I remember I don't remember asking for it, and it still showed up in the house one day. So when my parents bought it for me, and from there, that literally defined my future. I think because working on this game has kind of been my life's work. So my early experience after playing it at home would be I was getting used to the internet at the time. My dad had a computer. And so I would go online and I would discover these random message boards and websites and things, the Relic LOD fan sites coded in basic HTML. And my first forum, I believe, was the GameWinners.com forum. And there's still one or two people around from that era that I know, and they know me, and we still chat sometimes. So that's kind of fun. That was a long time ago.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah,
it's funny you mentioned those little demo kiosks because you're right. Toys R Us had our back, but Walmart wanted us to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my neck always hurt.
Walmart's like, you want to try this game? Good. You're gonna look up 10 feet up.
Yeah, for me it was Target in particular. Target, it was at the end of the aisle, and I was so tiny, and that TV is so tall, and like the angle of the TV. But like I remember having neck pain. I don't remember much about my childhood. I remember having neck pain and my mother being worried about me.
Yeah, I think if I had to think about it, they probably did it so the kids couldn't hit the TVs. But it sucked because you would be sitting there for like an hour while your parents shopped or whatever, and you'd be like, just your neck would be like all crank, like just hurting afterwards. I totally
like a
remember.
40-degree angle, like an 80-degree angle. You're like right up there. You're like, oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, but those demos were really good advertising. I mean, those.
Oh, man.
Oh yeah.
That got me to play and buy several games. I think that got me on Majora's Mask back in the day. I played the demo. It was kind of weird though. I was like, why am I like a little Deku guy? Like, what am I doing here? I didn't know what to do. But
I really miss that hands-on experience of the demo stations. Like digital is accessible, of course, but since, we've kind of fallen out of demos a little bit and they've only made, it seems like a minor resurgence thanks to Steam having a section for demos or whatever. I really just miss that physical feel of going to a store, getting your hands on that controller that is locked down really hard.
Yeah,
they always felt like the grossest things too, but you just didn't care because you're just like, what does Nintendo have now? What is this Super Mario? What?
No concept of hand washing.
Yeah,
they're playing.
Mario's playing tennis.
They're playing golf. What's going on?
Oh my god.
Yeah. I do remember those. Those are good times. And Wob, so you played it back in the day as well, you said, but you didn't really remember the game. So you kind of replayed it this last week and a half. I don't know, last week and a half or 2 weeks. And did your memories kind of come back? Was it like what you remembered the game being kind of? Was it exactly the same? Did you have like basically, I don't want to get into the review too much because we're going to do the review later, but basically, go ahead.
The way, so back in the early, like I'd say probably around 2002, maybe 3-ish, but my childhood best friend, they will remain nameless.
Okay.
We are no longer friends.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, he had it and he showed me it and I started playing it. And I remember that point we had sleepovers every weekend because that's just childhood best friends. And I remember playing with him all the way to the part of the tournament, beat that. And then he played it throughout the week. And then the next time I came back by, we were, no, I don't want to give away spoilers, especially this early on, but it's had something to do with the Emperor. Okay. And then another week off. And then by the time I played it like a third time, saw the entire ending sequence, like saw the entire like final cave, final split up thing where they all go down their own select paths and all the way through to the ending. And I'm just like, oh my God, you've really played a lot more of this than I have, eh? So playing through it this last like week and a half or so, as I play it more, I'm like, as an adult, I'm kind of just like, oh my God, I have to get 80 editions for this. All right, whatever. I got the time. And then the funny part is the only parts I remember are the huge spoilers.
Okay.
So I'm like playing through it and I'm like, oh yeah, oh no, I know what's coming up. Oh, I know what happens after that too. Oh, why am I grinding this so hard? Oh, well now I remember this.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll switch my party.
Yeah. Yeah. yeah, there's a certain point in the game that I was kind of disappointed. So and you guys probably might know what it is, because I only got like, maybe I got less than halfway, because I thought it was halfway, but maybe it was like somewhere in disc 2. But yeah, so let's go into so basically this game, without a doubt, was heavily influenced by the Final Fantasy series. Can we, do we all agree?
We got to
that?
get that out of the way. It's hard. It's so hard not to compare it. It's not fair to, because this is just like a love letter, but no matter what, you just can't avoid comparing it to a Final Fantasy game.
Do you feel the same way, Drew?
Mixed feelings. Firstly, they did confirm that Final Fantasy VII inspired their development. They started before FF7, and then FF7 happened, and then they ramped up development partly because of that new inspiration. So that's just a fact. And as for the comparisons, like Wobie said, it's kind of unavoidable, but also unfair. It's a mixed situation. Long story short, because of a few decisions the devs made, like having one of the early antagonists have silver hair, and a few other things, like, you know, the main character you play as having spiky blondish or chestnut colored hair. It was easy to just kind of use your feelings to make that into, well, it looks like a copy, even though 98% of it is very, very different.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Shuhei confirmed.
To clarify, like, you will compare it to Final Fantasy, but I don't think it's fair to.
Yeah, it's a different kind of game. It was one of many game developers that were cashing in on the Final Fantasy VII craze. Like, there was the whole I don't remember exactly how many, but there was at least a dozen other RPGs, I feel like, before the PS1 lifecycle ended, that were all getting crammed in alongside the successive Final Fantasies that came out after 7. I think Legend of Mana was one of them. Legend of Legaia, I don't remember. There were a lot.
I think Chrono Cross
and LOD. Yeah, and LOD was just sandwiched in there right as the PS2 hype was just beginning. When LOD came to Tokyo Game Show, that was also the same TGS that PS2 had dropped, and everyone was all over that. So LOD and other things lost a lot of visibility. It's always a risk when you put a game out at the end of a console's life cycle.
I actually have a great comparison for this. The way that LOD feels to me is kind of like how Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning feels. Whereas, like, Oblivion came out shortly before, and then Kingdoms of Amalur came out. But if you've ever played, if you're high fantasy, like action type RPG games, Kingdoms of Amalur is an amazing like game, like 9 out of 10. But it just got overshadowed. Mm-hmm. There was just so much else going on. Of course, everybody's going to get Elder Scrolls. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, especially after Morrowind, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like it was the first of an IP. It was a fresh start, and it had like Todd McFarlane as like the art designer. It was amazing. But like, you know, Elder Scrolls 4 comes out, and it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go see how buggy it is.
Yeah, you know, and when I do compare it to Final Fantasy, that doesn't make, even though I believe that it was heavily influenced by Final Fantasy VII specifically, I don't think that makes it a bad thing. I think it's okay for games to take influence from other games. I think that's completely fine, as long as it's not like a 1-for-1, like, you know, it's like the same story and it's like, okay, well, you know, let's get a little creative. But yeah, I think that's fine. And I think Legend of Dragoon did it in its own way. And you know, and I think it's interesting, and I think that that it did well, and there's a reason, you know, that this game has a very strong fan base. That, you know, very dedicated. Even one of my real life friends, when he heard I was playing this game, he was like, "Dude, that was like one of my favorite like RPGs of all time." You know, I liked it more than Final Fantasy VII, and that shocked me when I first heard that, because I thought, like, you know, Final Fantasy, you know, it's like for the old classics, it's either like 7, 8, 9, or 10. Well, mostly not 8, but like 7, 9. Yeah, there's a few that I do have a friend who likes 8 more than 7. But yeah, it's usually like one of those 3 games that people are like, yeah, that's like my, you know, old love of RPGs. But when I mentioned this, he's like, well, yeah, I liked it way better than Final Fantasy. He said that he thought that it just got overshadowed by the Final Fantasy series. And it makes sense, because Square Enix was a behemoth at this time.
Behemoth.
in the RPG realm. They were the storytellers. They were the cinematics. They were the music people. They had established a tower, like a castle that was impenetrable at that time. So I'm assuming, when Legend of Dragoon came out, people were like, why would I buy Legend of Dragoon when I already am buying Final Fantasy? Unless they had a lot of money, then they just buy both games and they play them both. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. I think, and I'm going to give this game credit where it's due a little bit later on. But yeah, I do. I did get a lot of heavy Final Fantasy vibes, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Was my point. I do not think it's a bad thing at all. I love Final Fantasy. Now, do you prefer do you like Final Fantasy, Drew? Or
So I haven't played a lot of them. I played a few. I actually originally got stuck on 7. I couldn't get past the first machine boss or whatever that thing is. So I admit to being, I guess, bad at the game somehow.
Oh, go ahead, Lance.
You gonna tell me something?
No, because I always say to myself, I'm mad. The reason I gave this, a bad point to a game is because bad. Because a lot of the time you're like, well, that's not a big deal, and I'm like, well, I know. It's just I'm mad because bad. So it's like a thing I say all the time. But yeah,
I can say I plan to finish it at some point. I have played a few other ones. I played 11 growing up, which you might not consider that mainline because it's the online version, but I thought that was interesting.
Place.
I liked the art style very much. And then I also had one of my first experiences was 10-2, and people told me that was bad for that to be one of my first experiences. But then I also played 12, and I really, really, really liked 12. I wouldn't consider it perfect, but I had a lot of fun with it. I have fun with the LP board to class out everyone how I wanted. I loved the quickening system. I was obsessed with the quickening magics. It was fun for me, and the music also, I think, got to me there. But generally, have not been drawn in by Final Fantasy. So I'm gonna try a few more as I go. I'm really curious about 9 in particular. So that'll be one of my playthroughs probably next year.
Yeah,
I kind of felt like I missed 9 while I was playing Legend of Dragoon, but that's because I played 9 beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel
big.
I feel like if you like Legend of Dragoon, you'll like 9. I think that's a very they both kind of have a similar feel to it. Obviously, there's no additions or anything like that in Final Fantasy, but thematically they feel similar in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think you would like 9. And you know what? I'm gonna give you this. That first boss in Final Fantasy 7, it kind of comes out swinging a little bit. If you're not ready for it, if you're not ready for it, and you're you've never played Final Fantasy before, that boss, when I was a child, that boss killed me over and over and over. I didn't know what to do. I finally, when I got older, I kind of realized how to beat the guy. But it does come out swinging a little bit. So I'll give you that. Yeah. So now let's go on to a couple of the fun questions. Who's your favorite Dragoon and why? And we'll start with you, Drew.
This is a very unfair question because although I can sometimes pick favorites, I will say in this game I like all of them too many of the questions. I would barely go with the Jade Dragoon, probably.
Okay. So the Jade Dragoon, is that the lady with the dark clothes?
No.
That's Rose the Darkness Dragoon. The Jade Dragoon goes to Lavitz.
Yeah. I got it. Okay, I remember now.
So the Wind Dragoon, if we go by elements, the Wind one. Lavitz gets it from Graham early in Chapter 1, and I like them all, but with Lavitz, his voiceovers carry over, of course. So when he does the basic attack, the Dragoon attack, he's got those various grunts as he's doing his, spear flip arounds, and he's flying around in the air. At the end of that attack, if you get the perfect with all of the button presses, he goes here, and then it sounds like he's saying die, but it sounds more like da, and it's really intense. And I love the voice work for Lavitz. Mike Marks did an amazing job. So that carries over to the magic, of course. So anytime he says the name of a spell, I'm melting. It's just how it is. He's got a good kit in terms of the gameplay itself. You've got an area spell, you have a single target spell, you have a defensive spell that carries great into late game. And then it's probably my favorite dragon summon. I love the dragons in general, but it's probably my favorite dragon summon. Just this psychedelic acid trip weirdness going on with this spherical, like giant gale force wind thing. It's amazing. The sound design and all of it really comes together, I think. Like, that's kind of my top points for the game in general, is the cinema, the style, the immersion is all cranked up to 11.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, yeah, he's the green dragon. Okay, so I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but the wind made more sense to me, because now that you mentioned all the wind stuff, yeah, that's something. And it's been a few weeks since I played the game, so I'm gonna have to like kind of remember some of these things.
I'll forgive you.
Yeah, thank you. We were supposed to do it like the week after I played the game, but you know, the voice thing. Do you have a favorite?
How about you?
Oh man, you know, I might have to go with that chick, the dark dragon one. She's kind of cool. I kind of like her character. And I think like her transformation just makes sense to me. I think it. Does she? So remind me, is this correct? Does she does like some sort of gravity looking? Like when she does the transformation, there's like a gravity. It's like a dark sphere, or am I wrong? Is that something else? Okay.
Yes, it's a sphere, and she's flashing inside it, and then it concentrates into a tiny point, kind of like a singularity collapsing or something.
Yeah, and I thought that's cool. I think that, like, you know, that was like a cool transformation. So probably that one. You know, as far as my favorite character, though, like, I mean, I know that's not the question, but man, I mean, Dart, he's like the main guy, I guess, but if I don't choose Dart, probably Lavitz. I like Lavitz a lot. I think he's just a great, heroic, awesome character that just stands true to his nature. You know, he's very. What do you want to? I don't know what the word for it, but
he's there for you.
Yeah, he's there for you, and he's always. He's very passionate. He's always trying to hook you and that chick up. You know, he's like a bro. Like he's always what do you call a wingman? It's great. I love him. Now, Wob, do you have a favorite dragoon?
Like to simp over the goth lady, Rose.
But
I do actually like Rose's dragoon form and transformation a lot. But I actually have to think that Shanna. I think it's the wings for me with Shanna's. It's more of like a light effect. And I mean, they all have like a light effect. It kind of looks like more like ethereal wings is what they all look like. But because it's more of a lighter like tone, her armor, I kind of feel like that one is the most aesthetically pleasing. But I kind of got to go with the dark, moody girl. She's my Morrigan of Legend of Dragoon.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I get it. What do they call them? Goth mummies or something?
Yeah.
So I'll give you guys also, to be fair, because I said my favorite character. So who's your favorite character, Drew?
That might be some spoilers.
Oh, okay, maybe. I mean, maybe you
I
could
like a lot of characters. Yeah. But in terms of like how I would rate them in terms of the quality of the writing and the design and all that, it's going to go to Rose. I mean, Rose is just the most fleshed out character. The rest have some dimension to them, to be fair. And there's only so much room. I mean, this was made in 96, you know, give them a break. But I feel like Rose is the most believable character, the one we can most relate to, at least on successive playthroughs. Like Dart is the like the conduit for the player. I feel like, you know, channeling that passion and wanting to, you know, do right and solve wrongs and all this stuff, and then do the combat. But I think for me, my favorite character would have to just be Rose in terms of playable characters. Technically, there's another playable character I like more, but I can't tell you because it's a spoiler.
Okay. And then Wob, is it also Rose?
Yeah, to basically piggyback off of him, not because of the goth mommy vibes, but that like leads into my first good point of the game, was actually just how passionate the story is. Like it's like for like a game that Sony just made in house with like I think by the end of development they had like 100. They were like 100 developers, and it was going on for like 5 years of development. But like Rose has the most interesting story to me, and I'd like again to agree with Drew. I definitely agree that like they're the most fleshed out and most interesting in my opinion. And to also piggyback off of the Dart thing, I like when games have like an insert yourself here hero, but I think that they actually did Dart quite well. He's got enough personality that he's not bland, but he doesn't have too much that it's like Deadpool taking the whole scene.
Right. Yeah,
he's more of an Owen Wilson character. He looks at things and goes, "Wow."
Yeah, and he kind of just speaks for you.
Now when I play this game, I'm gonna think of Owen Wilson.
Wow.
He's gonna be like, "Wow."
Now that's got to be in the port. You got to change Dart's looks to look just like Owen Wilson.
Someone will make a mod. Believe me, I know.
And then there'll be all of his action commands to say, "Wow, wow, wow." Every time he hits, different wow.
I shouldn't have brought it up.
There you go. Someone's gonna listen to this and they're gonna put it in.
Yeah, he's fine. Go ahead.
If I may, really quick, a little insight into this. In the press materials, which, as gamers, we never saw these, but in the press materials that went out with images and like a text document with a little brief info about the game, it named Dart, Shauna, and Rose as the three main characters. And that's basically true. But according to a developer confirmation, Rose was originally going to be like the sole main character. Dart hadn't existed yet. And Dart came in later.
Oh, so that makes a lot
might
of
explain
sense.
why
Probably
she's
would
more
have
fully
played it
fleshed
a
out.
lot more if Rose was the main character.
Yeah.
No particular reason, right?
No.
Yeah, this game
Came
would
out
have
at a
outsold
perfect time.
It would have outsold Final Fantasy if that was the case. No, I don't know. Yeah, I think she's a great character. I haven't even got far enough into the game to say like her full backstory, but she's been a character that I do enjoy.
Oh, it's wild.
And so I'm kind of curious to know more about her. She's a little mysterious still where I'm at. She's a little bit mysterious. She kind of chimes in about the Dragoon transformations, and she kind of just like drops knowledge on people when it's necessary, but that's about it so far, but I'm guessing she gets really good. And that's that's one of my good points that, like you were kind of saying, Wob, is that I think the story, I'm gonna say it starts out kind of like pretty normal, like pretty basic
fantasy type stuff. Yeah,
generic. It starts off and you're just like, okay, like they're extracting a crystal from this lady, the kidnapper or something, I don't know, whatever. And then it starts to just progressively get like more in depth and more in depth. And you figure out there's these things called the winglings, I want to call them. Is that the right? Winglies, right?
Yeah.
And they, there was a 10,000-year-old war where the humans and the winglies 11,000? Okay. 11,000-year-old war that they fought each other, and basically the reason there's dragoons is because the humans needed help from the dragons in order to win this fight, because these winglies can fight. Funny enough, they can fly. It's kind of funny because
it's in the name.
Yeah, it's in their name. So they're kind of
really disappointed if they couldn't.
They're like an OP race or something, and they there's some sort of war, and then the dragoons end up basically coming together to work with the dragons to defeat these winglies like years and years and years ago. And from my understanding, spoiler alert, I didn't get to this point, but they come back. The winglies come back. And I don't really know what that means, or how that happens. I just know that
it gets pretty wild.
That they do come back. And I'm assuming they're pretty strong. So yeah, I think the story really seems to, like, it kind of takes off. It kind of starts off, and it's like a roller coaster where you're kind of like slowly going up, and then all of a sudden you're on a ride eventually. But it kind of starts out like that, like slow roller coastery, and then boom, you're in it. So, is there, without getting too much in the spoilers, is there, what did you really like about the story, Drew?
Oh dear. Loaded question.
Yeah. I mean,
so It's kind of I don't even know how to say this. I like both the local and intimate stuff as well as the like grander picture stuff. People who know me probably are used to me talking and just oozing about the backstory, because for me the backstory is where the game really shines and is more unique. A lot of people will just play chapter 1 or chapter 2 and it'll just look simple and tropey and nothing special. But with that, still in chapter 1, and it's easy to miss some of it, but there's a lot of intimate detail to the Sturgeon War, the first chapter's contents. You might understand a lot of it at this level. You've got Sandora, who split off from Serdio, and so you have Sandora in the south, Basel in the north, and the truce is falling apart, and you get swept up in the middle of it, and you end up trying to solve it, and so on and so forth. But there are just through like talking to random NPCs, not just when you meet them, but even later in the game, as different like plot flags fire, if that makes sense. And you complete more of the main story. If you come back, those NPCs have new things to say, either about different things or the same topic. These little mini arcs that aren't necessary at all to the main game, but really add a lot of character and world building. I consider it like one of the first games to do living world dialogue as best they could at the time. There's like a whole plot that spans between 2 different towns. There's a plot at the end of chapter 1 about new leadership and how the people resisted at first, but slowly come to accept it and they like it. Just really good world building at the local level, and then also the backstory, which I can't talk a lot about because spoilers. But I promise that the story that's there, the game doesn't always tell it in the most elegant way. There's those exposition dumps, but there's a lot to love there because it's a story that, I don't think other games really touch on the same kind of thing. Really, it's hard to explain.
Yeah, it's hard to explain without I get it, without spoiling too much. I get it.
Long story short, you do, as you go through the chapters, get through you go from local conflict to kind of another local conflict that ties in with. They did a good job of tying in local conflicts with the overarching plot. Like they're like checkpoints to each other in a way. And so as you go through the chapters, you're like peeling the layers of an onion, and you're unfolding more and more of the backstory and the ultimate reason why everything is happening. And so I think they did a decent job of that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So it sounds like this game, I feel like I only scratched the surface, and that's I've said this before, but with RPGs, the problem with the format of the podcast where I play it for a week, sometimes I can't get far enough to like really get in the meat and potatoes. So, and it kind of makes me sad because I know there's so much more to this. And I think I'll probably play it on my personal time when, I'm not playing because I really want to get to the end of this game. I actually I like it. Spoiler alert for my review. I like the game. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to rate it, but I like this game. So it kind of makes me, I want to go back and play it. It kind of makes me sad I didn't get as far as I wanted to, but I can tell that there's so much there to be unloaded and unraveled. It's I think it starts out, and this is everything's Final Fantasy, but ironically enough, it's gonna get. That's another running joke, by the way, Drew. So I relate everything to Final Fantasy, but it's unavoidable with this.
Got it.
Yeah, basically, it doesn't start off as strong as something at like 7. It probably starts off as strong as something like Final Fantasy 8. I would say it's probably in the same ballpark. But Final Fantasy 8 also ramps up like this game does, and then something like 7 kind of just like hits you with that crane like right off the bat. Like there's stuff like. The first scene is like you're exploding a Mako reactor and people are dying, like it's basically. So, but it definitely seems like it's one of these games that just gets better and better over the discs that you go. So now I think, I'm going to go actually, yeah, we'll go start going into the reviews, and then we'll come back to this other question. So, one of my good points, I already said the story, and so did Wob. You said the story as well. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Wob?
The story stuff, yeah. Not a whole lot, but Drew's right. Like when you get to that lore dump of like disc 3, it reveals so much more to it, and then that's when you realize it is a lot more like a roller coaster than you even like. So you haven't played through the whole thing, Lance, but it's a lot more like a roller coaster than you think it is.
Okay.
Like the story progression is just like you get to points, you're just like, whoa, wait, what? What? Seriously? What? And you just have so many questions, but like you actually get some answers to it, but it's just things aren't what they seem to be. And then when you think you get the answer, suddenly there's something new, and you're just like, okay, what?
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Its story progression is definitely the strongest suit, in my opinion, for the game. The strongest thing comes from the story, the passion behind it, and just how deep of something that's unfortunately been overshadowed by, again, like the behemoth of Square Enix.
Yeah, and so the story, that's good that it is, because I think when it comes to these type of games, that's the most important thing about these games, is that they kind of play,
easily, yeah.
They kind of play out like a movie. If you love turn-based combat, cool. But turn-based combat is turn-based combat. I enjoy it, but some people don't. But even if you don't enjoy turn-based combat, if it has a good story like this, it kind of, these games kind of play out like movies or books or novels, like maybe like a little bit of both. And so it's very, very, very important that the story, more important than anything else, that the story is like good, in my opinion. So that I'm glad to hear it. I'm going to go into one of my bad points, and and this might get corrected later on, but to the point where I'm at in the game, I hate the world map, and I'm gonna say that so basically, just for people who haven't played the game, basically the way the world map works, it's not like Final Fantasy. It kind of is, but it isn't. Not really. It's like you go, your character's in the world map, and then you have like a line to the next areas. Like you have a choice between like maybe one or two areas or whatever, and then you have to like enter that area, and then you have to once you're in the area, you have to like walk out of the area to get back out into the world map, and then you can like exit from the back of the area. Maybe eventually you get something like a high wind in this game, or like a ship of some sort that kind of like you can fly over. Does that ever change? Can you let me know?
It changes, but it's very late.
Yeah, it's pretty late.
Okay.
The world map is a fake open world traversal. It's more like walking down streets.
You're connecting. It's literally dots on the map. You're going from one point to the next. It's just a very rough, representation of the fact that you're traveling to the next area, that a little time is passing, and it is the 3D model for the terrain is so low resolution. It's rough. The extra features aren't obvious because you can't expect players to read the game manuals. Like, people don't know that there's quest markers. People don't know that you can check what facilities are at a given location. It's rough. Like, I wish there was
the weakest part to me.
Based on what the later fast travel option is, I wish we could have an earlier, like even if more modest fast travel option, because the game shows you right away there's lots of merchants. It'd be cool if, one of the merchants you end up talking to, like a required interaction, one of the merchants you talk to would end up being like, hey, if you need me, I can cart you around places. And, I can also act as a mobile shop or something. And then maybe it would help you with sort of micro fast travel until you get the better option.
Yeah. And, the only reason I really had an issue with this, it was when I was trying to backtrack for like Stardust or something in this game. It's like, okay, I would have to go through a town, and then I'd have to go through another town to get to the next town. And it's like, oh man, that felt like a chore when I was looking, like trying to go back and get certain things. Otherwise, I don't think it would have bothered me that much, because I know it was kind of like the world map was pretty secondary, like you were kind of implying to the main game. It was kind of just something they were like, oh, look, you're like, you're traveling around. Yeah,
it would have been nice if they had something of any kind. Like, the game started development in 96, so, it's understandable. But I've played other games where once you pass like the recommended level of a given area, the enemies no longer aggro you anymore, and you can maybe skip the enemies, get through the area quicker that way. Anything at all would have helped tighten that up. but at least
And I can't grind the additions.
it's just true. But at least with severed chains, we can help you tighten up all those load times that you'd be dealing with.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
one quick bad thing is the flash at the start of combat.
What about the flash?
Like when so maybe it was the version I was playing, but whenever I go into combat, the screen transitions to the combat screen, then white screen, then combat.
Oh, I think I kind of know.
So I'm like playing at like 1 a.m. the other night, and it's just like I'm playing, and every time I get into a fight, I turn my PSP away from me, see it light up the room, and then place it back towards me.
Whether for that reason or if you have a disability like seizure potential, one of the things we do with severed chains is accessibility options, and we have a rudimentary thing right now for reduced motion and flashing. So that may be of interest to some people who are listening right now.
That's good, because I'm not prone to seizures, but I swear that flash in the middle of the night makes me want to have one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm glad that you fixed that in the severed chains port, because you guys did a lot of that. Like, you guys really fixed a lot of stuff that I would have in the original game I would have complained about, like, a lot. And I'll go over some of those in a second, but in a few minutes. But it would have just been, I think the game would have been a worse experience because the game's older, so it's not gonna have some quality of life. Even if I go back and play Final Fantasy VII, there's gonna be certain things where I'm gonna be like, dude, if they only had this like little quality of life, So
exactly.
Yeah, I feel that, and I'm glad that you guys do that for the port, and you guys really listen to your community too. Like it seems like you really take feedback, and you're all listening to like what people want, which is great.
Yeah, we have to. I mean, it's for them.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be right if we didn't. Like, there can always be, like a bad suggestion, like something that only one person will end up wanting, and so we can't justify putting the code time into that. But generally speaking, we I talked with Monoxide, and I was like, hey, I want to go through some general categories of things, and you tell me if it's easy to do, sort of feasible to do, or just off the list, not going to happen in core development. And he said, sure, we'll go through the list. And I mentioned like 20 or 30 things rapid fire, and almost every single one of them, he was like, yeah, sure, we can do that. And I escalate into more crazy things like, well, how about PvP? Oh, sure, we could do that.
Oh my goodness, that would be crazy.
And so it's partly his fault that, I'm as into it as I am. But yeah, so whether it's, quality of life stuff, the little things, accessibility, mod categories in general, like that's the thing with reverse engineered ports. Obviously, it's understandable. Emulation was standard for a reason. You build one piece of software, it covers usually the whole library of games. Like EPSXE ran virtually every PlayStation game, and so on and so forth. Building these ports, you usually have to do a specific piece of software for every single game for the most part. It's a lot more work as a result. But if we put in that work, it basically makes any game, whatever review it would have, it would turn a 5 out of 10 game into a 7 out of 10 game. It would turn an 8 out of 10 into a 9 or a 10 out of 10, because sometimes they're just, one of the only things wrong is really poor controls or an awful camera. And if just that one or two things was fixed, it would be amazing. And some things maybe you can't fix, but in just about any case, you could, it's like, I don't know, take it like uplifting a species in a video game like Stellaris or something like that. You're just taking what it is and accelerating it, giving it what it needs to really shine and flourish, I guess.
Yeah, and that's so cool. I'm actually going to go over a list of some of the things that I thought was like some of my favorite additions to the game, and that you did. And that one of them was the save anywhere feature. I think that I loved the save anywhere feature, because sometimes like I'd be in the middle of something and it's like, man, I gotta go. I can't and with these old games, like even FF7 had this, is like there were specific save points and you had to like get to the next save point to save. It's like, no, but I gotta go now. I can't just like leave, and I could just save anywhere and be like, all right, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And that was awesome. I love that feature.
Yeah, you don't have to go hunting around to see where was it, which screen was it on, is it down this tunnel? I don't know. And
it's not game breaking in my opinion. It's not something that like makes the game like you're cheating. It's like, no, it's just really convenient and nice. I loved it.
Funny because I played mine on my PSP and I had to go back and find all the save points.
Yeah, so you probably would really like that. The save anywhere.
And you can do, emulation has save states, which helps with accessibility, but by nature, those are unstable and should not be relied upon.
No.
Whereas the natural saves, or nat saves as I call them, are fully reliable.
Yeah, and so I wanted to ask, is the auto additions a severed chains thing?
Yes. In the regular game, which we call retail being original hardware or emulation, automatic additions are available through a very expensive accessory, and you can get one for free through an obscure puzzle that is just completely luck based and takes a lot of time. Otherwise, you grind 10,000 gold to buy it in one of the shops, and that'll let you get automatic additions if you aren't good with the quick time events of the rapid button presses to do all those physical combo attacks. There's a cheaper version for only 1,000 gold, but then it only does half damage and it doesn't count towards your completions to level up the addition's power. So that feels bad. And, we're all in our 30s now or more, and we need accessibility, whether we have, eye strain or hand issues. I have some hand issues myself. And so sometimes I need to just let the game do the additions for me, do the combo attacks for me. No shame.
Hang on, Lance, you've been playing the Severed Chains one?
Yes, that's the one I played.
Okay, well, now I just feel one of my complaints was having to do the additions, and now I'm just finding out that Severed Chains just does it for me.
I'm going to be honest,
you got to start again.
I didn't use the auto additions because I felt like I would have let people down. But the thing is, okay, we're going to go to one of my mixed feelings. I like the addition. Combat in this game, and I think it's unique, and I think that's really what separates it from some other turn-based RPGs. I just
will not name.
What could it be?
What could it be?
But I think it's just overused. Like I don't want to do it every single time. Like if I had to do an addition like once per battle or per character, I think I would be fine with that. But it's like every time you attack, you had to do it. It's like, okay, I'm doing it again. And sometimes I just wanted to just slap the enemy. I didn't want to like focus on doing the additions, But maybe, and I get this, like maybe the combat would have felt too simple if they got rid of the additions. You know what I mean? Or like made it less so, because that was like kind of the big thing, right? It's like it's like, okay, I got to press square, now I got to press triangle, now I got to press X, and so you're and certain abilities get really complicated. It seems like the different ones you use. How do you guys feel about this? Like, are you okay with always doing additions? Or... Here,
I'll pipe in for this one, because I had this in good at first, but then the more I played, I moved it towards meh. But then I had to separate it. So the combat, I feel, is entirely it's unique. We all know this, but it's a great concept, and I love it. It's really cool for again, like turn-based RPG, but then you can break it down into what it really is. And if you're a completionist, and let's be honest, most people who play JRPGs, they want to eat as much food as they can till they gorge themselves on these things.
Yes.
The additions, unfortunately, just do become way too tedious and way too much, which is why, again, props for the Severed Chains doing the auto additions, because I like the additions, I do. But when I had to cram this weekend because I was also trying to do family stuff, I'd be in the middle of a conversation, and then I'd be like, hang on, I gotta hit X, 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 X. Okay, what were we talking about?
Yeah.
I kind of missed that whole hit X and it kills it.
Yeah, it's not very passive.
I couldn't miss the additions because I unfortunately am one of those ones who I have to unlock all the skills. If I personally didn't care about it, it'd be an entirely different story. But for like most JRPG fans, we want to get as much out of it as we can. We're going to try to see what Dart's level 7 edition is, and we know we can't get that unless we max out all the other ones.
Yeah. And how do you
and you have to succeed. You have to succeed 80 times with all of them, which can be like 5 or 6 other editions. That's a lot of
daunting.
It's a lot of repetition, and although you can switch freely in the menu, that takes extra time every time you switch, and there's a natural reason to keep using the same one for a while so it gets stronger, and then you can benefit from that at the boss fight and all this stuff. To quickly bounce off what you said, I kind of relate it to watching a show with subtitles versus audio dubs if it's not in my native language already. So if I listen to the dub or I just watch something in English, I can safely look away from the screen while I'm like folding laundry or something, and I won't miss what they said. But if it's subtitled, I have to look at the screen constantly. If I look away, I have done it before. If I look away for like a second, I have to rewind and see what they said.
Yeah.
So it's like a passive, I get to enjoy it passively versus I get to enjoy it actively. And to me, this is really important that there's like in games, there's more of a tug of war compared to other things. Like obviously in a movie or a show, you're just watching and you just get to enjoy it. You don't have to do any interactivity. With games, there's expected interactivity. That's the point of the medium. But there's this varying level of balance. Some are more movie-esque, some are just more interaction-based, some are obviously a mix. And I think LOD struggles with this a bit because it's trying so hard to be cinematic. It's trying so hard to be stylish and immersive and interactive. And that it kind of, it's two groups pulling opposite ends of the rope. So for example, you got the additions. Those are interactive. It feels like you're doing the attack. That's brilliant. I wish more games were like that. Sometimes it's nice to, just play passively, but sometimes I want to be engaged. I want to be drawn into it. That makes me enjoy it more. That's the point of immersion. So obviously, I like those interactive combo attacks. But they specifically did a different version of this with the D attacks, the physical attack for Dragoons. Instead of doing the button presses live at every individual strike, which I do love very much, they're like, here, you're going to charge up this revolution thing, this circle, and you're going to charge it up 4 times or so. And then you can just watch the attack. And that made me realize later in life, I get to just sit and enjoy this. Because if you're worrying about the button presses, in a way, you can't enjoy it as much as you would watching it, if that makes sense. Like you're doing a trade-off of the interactivity versus the pure watching of it. And so I'm like, I love both, but I can't have both at the exact same time. Which one do I like more? But it's up to you what you want in the moment or in general. And that's kind of hard because if you want more interactivity in games, you're going to love the combo attacks. But if you want to just watch, then you either need the auto addition feature from Severed Chains or to pay for that expensive accessory that you shouldn't have to grind for these days, or you just have to do the D attacks and the magic so you can just watch that unfold. So they both are good. It's a trade-off. And even with the interactivity, it's hard because you can't swap your additions in the middle of battle. So it gets really monotonous, or you make a mistake and you accidentally bring like a low damage combo attack to a boss fight and it's a slog because you're not doing much damage. And now you can fix that mistake. Once again, with Severed Chains, press the equivalent for the triangle button, and now you have some more combo attack variety in those battles. I think that's part of what made the addition training such a slog, is we couldn't switch them in battle.
Okay.
That sub versus dub part was almost poetically correct. Like it was so accurate.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that too. I like that analogy.
That was like the more you said that, I was just like, oh my god, I'm in a box right now. He's got.
I'm onto something, aren't I?
Yeah.
I'm a dub guy. Everyone's gonna hate me, but I'm a dub guy. I'm
sorry.
I know that people are gonna hate me for that.
Sorry.
I often want to hear the original voices, especially in case, the original voices are, higher quality. It's just how it happens sometimes, but it's hard for me to justify. Sometimes I just got to take the dubs.
Right. Yeah. I feel the exact same way. And it's just like something I can relate to, even if the voice acting's a little bit worse. And often it is because the Japanese voice actors are just like, there's so much emotion. It's just, it's more relatable. I don't speak Japanese really. There's a few phrases I know, but it's not something I can like. But anyways, that's I digress. That's like a whole different conversation there. Yeah. So yeah, I think with the additions, I think, to summarize my kind of what I was feeling with that is that I think because LOD is such a long game, it's like such a long game, the additions can kind of like over time feel like a chore.
Wear you down?
Yeah, like they did for you, Wob. Like where it's not. I think they're fine. I think if the game was maybe like a third as long as it is, the additions would have been like for every turn, it probably would have been just fine, completely fine. But it's very, very long, and so you're doing it a lot, unless you just don't care about your damage. But in this game, you're going to care about your damage. But yeah, we'll go into the next point, and this is kind of part of the transition into one of my good points, is that even though the additions were there, I felt like the combat system wasn't overly complex, and I kind of liked that about this game. It was kind of like something I could jump into, and especially coming from Final Fantasy, it was something I understood very easily. Aside from the fact that like I didn't really understand like leveling up additions, like what that did for me, because people were like, you gotta, the advice that I kept getting for this game was like, you got to level up every single edition, and you got to get all the Stardust, and you got to do, and it's like, and I didn't really know why. I'm like, what, but they're like, you got to do it for every single, and I'm like, okay. But other than that, it didn't feel like when I was in battle, I didn't really struggle. I didn't get that far, but I didn't really struggle with too many fights. I don't know if I ever really died. I don't know if I ever died in a fight. I got close once, I think, but it was, and I kind of liked that about that. It was fine. I enjoyed that part of the game. Does it get a lot harder as you go along?
It doesn't feel like a slog of difficulty is the thing. The difficulty spike is quite steady. I actually I was going to say that's one of my good points. The difficulty spikes or lack thereof are really complementary for the combat system.
Okay.
Yeah. There's only a couple bosses that will have a particular, spike up or down. For example, Django at Helena Prison is a spike for most people. Fighting Linus in Chapter 2 is a heavy spike for many players. But generally speaking, generally speaking, it's just a linear going up thing. So long as you have a few addition levels trained, even one of the more basic additions like Dart's Volcano. It's one of the first ones he gets, but if you take that to, even just level 3 or 4, he's doing decent enough damage. It'll take longer to beat the boss, but it won't necessarily make the fight harder. It just takes longer. People have beaten the game using the basic edition Double Slash. So you don't have to do unlock all of the additions. You get most of them just through level ups, but you don't have to get the final one by mastering all the others to do well. You've got lots of different tools at your disposal. Additions are obviously the highlight, but there's also multiple types of magic. And you just get a lot to work with. I feel like you get almost all the experience points you need from bosses. There's really not a lot of grinding required, unless if you're doing additions, make sure you get a couple Addy level ups, and that's all you need.
Yeah, Lance, I think you were given you probably asked in like a more of a dedicated group, because you can kind of just go through the game, and this is what I did this time because I've gone through the game hardcore before, but this time I just kind of went through casually. Like I started collecting a bunch of Stardust, and I'm just like, man, you know what? Screw it. I'm not even gonna get all 50 this time. Forget it. And then you just kind of go through it for the sake of going through it. I mean, I still level additions, but that's just because I like unlocking things, which is one of my positive points. Is there's always feels like something to unlock. Like the progression of that is pleasant. If the additions didn't become so, arduous, I'll say, but not really. It's like it's part of the charm of the game. But auto addition sounds way better to me. I'd probably only turn them on for anytime it comes to a boss. I would immediately turn off auto additions because I want to feel that fight.
Yeah.
So I like to recommend, generally speaking, when you're playing a game for the first time, just do, if you can, a casual run. It's hard not to. Like I just did Expedition 33 and I was checking every corner for items and things. I get it. But if you can, just play it casually at first, do the natural flow. And then if after you've beaten the game, you decide you like it enough, then decide if you're going to do like a second playthrough that's more thorough. Because I found that even when I try to do 100% on my first run, I end up missing something anyway. Might as well save that for a second playthrough instead.
Okay. Yeah, and that's something with that Stardust, right? That it's like there's a certain, people kept telling me like there's a certain point in the game that you can't go back and you can't get it. Is that true? Yeah,
but that's very, very late. Very late. You'll have plenty of time. The game even gives you like a pretty obvious, once we do this, we're not able to turn back anymore.
Okay. Yeah, so because
you'll literally be prompted and you choose wait a little or okay.
Yeah, I thought I accidentally went past that the point, and I was freaking out. I was like, no, I missed it, but I guess I didn't. So Okay.
There's only a couple of brief points where you're not allowed to access Stardust if like you're in the middle of a story event in a castle or something. Obviously you can't go everywhere, but generally speaking, when you have access to the roads and the what they call the barrier stations that connect the different regions, you can go and get them whenever you want, or you can just wait until you get fast travel. It's up to you.
You were going to say something, Bob?
The one thing, so this actually kind of goes into one of my negative points. Now, bear with me on this one. I kind of find the Stardust to be more of a diehard collectible. I feel like it doesn't really feel like it's worth it unless you now for a fan of the game, it's great. For a casual player, Stardust just feels like the only collectible, and you kind of, if you don't know what it's for, you're kind of just like, hey, why am I doing this? I didn't feel I feel as though they could have introduced something. Is there not another collectible in the game, like throughout the game?
There are other kinds of collectibles. I mean, you can consider gear a collectible if you want. Some of the gear is rare. There's also goods if you value the story-based items that generally don't do anything. They're just in your inventory, like a bouquet of flowers or a letter or a war bulletin. Some of them are required. Some of them are optional. And there are also consumable items that are technically collectible. They're rarer. They're one-offs that you only get one time and have repeat usage.
Yeah, that's fair.
It drove me crazy. So there with the Stardust, there's one that I couldn't find, and maybe you guys can like help me with this. There's one, I think it was like in the second town. Okay, and what was that town called? Flohan, maybe? Bale? Maybe it was Bale. I don't know.
Bale's the second town.
And you go. There's supposed to be one like under the canal. So like there's like the undercity, like not or whatever. And like you're like in these tunnels, dude. I couldn't find that one. I don't know. I could not find that one, dude. I like went down there, went back and forth. It drove me nuts, and that's why I was worried about like going back because I was like, I can't. Like if I can't go back, I can't get that. But
yeah, you can do it later. The game doesn't, tell you a lot of things like where the Stardust is. You're just randomly pressing X on the different objects. Similar with NPCs. To get one of the pieces of Stardust, you have to talk to one NPC and then another NPC, and it's so easy to miss.
Okay, yeah, it's maybe it's like the one like there was something about riding a boat. I never rode a boat. I don't remember riding a boat. Maybe I did, but I never found it. I never found it. But yeah, it's so the Stardust is like for a secret boss at the end or something. Is that what people were kind of saying? Okay.
Magician Faust.
And is it important to the story, or is it just kind of like a emerald weapon?
Additional story tidbits, but not integral.
Not vital. It's just some bonus stuff.
He's kind of just the super boss of the game. It's closer to the emerald weapon of the game. I'd put him more on par with Ultima weapon, because emerald is a nightmare unless you know how to cheese it.
Yeah, emerald. Well, yeah, emerald and ruby are both nightmares. Ruby was more of a nightmare for me, but yeah, it's so Ultima weapon. I get it. Yeah, Ultima weapon was also optional, but everybody always does Ultima weapon because he's like very obvious to do. But you don't have to do collectibles for that. Okay, I just wanted to know. I was kind of curious, like if I miss this, am I going to be like super disappointed that I didn't do this boss, or is it going to be just kind of like something like a completionist thing?
It's a fun little bonus kind of a thing, but it's not just about the final reward. There are rewards at every 10 Stardust you collect, and the other 4 are gear-based, which can be very useful in battle, but they're not required by any means. They just help you diversify your builds a little bit if you want to.
Gear-based. Okay. Yeah. All right. Good. Well, I'm glad I know that now. Thank you for telling me. I wasn't sure because I wanted, when I was asking for advice, I wanted people to keep it kind of vague when I was first playing the game. I didn't want like spoilers. So, yeah. So let's go into another one of my bad points. Now that we're talking about me trying to find that Stardust, this actually transitions into one of my bad points, and that's the towns in this game and the buildings. They're like mazes. Did you guys?
Thank you. That's one of mine.
Oh my goodness.
So, funnily enough, that's by design in parts. There are different types of locations that are split into about 4 categories, and one category is literally called maze.
Okay, yeah.
Like what was it in Lowen? When you get to Lowen after Shanna gets sick, and I'm like, yo, I'm just running out of town. I'm not doing this. Like you step out, and because I had the little cursor active, and it shows like all these doors, and I'm just like, no, I'm just leaving town.
There's like 10 or 15 doors, and you're like, what all is in them? Is it mostly just NPCs? I don't know. It's overwhelming.
It's not even that there's just doors. It's like you'll go into those doors, and those doors lead to other doors, and there's like other doors.
Yes, yeah. I just that was one of my bad points. I'm like, dude, the city traversal, the town traversal. Yeah, I just nope.
They probably struggled to design it, I think, because, they decided to do the static art backgrounds. And then, if you're just doing like a landscape, like the grassy plains or whatever, you can just say, okay, we'll put a camera up here and it's looking down on this road at an angle and it looks cool. But when you're talking about a dense like merchant town in this kind of like a medieval fantasy setting and everything is all like packed together, it like they have to do cutouts of all this stuff. It's got to be a nightmare, because especially you may not know this, but most, if not all, of the scenes that you like walk around in, those background images, were 3D scenes that they then baked into 2D images. So they had to
remember seeing a picture of that, like seeing how they actually layered it. I do remember that.
So they have to split all that for the perspective shots, showing like the sides of these buildings, like cutaway right around the time that The Sims came out, and also had those cutaway walls so you could see what you're doing.
Oh my goodness! So
you played The Sims?
No, yeah, I did play The Sims. Yeah, I have funny stories about The Sims, but I won't tell that now. But I like The Sims. And it's funny that you mentioned how they built the pre-rendered backgrounds, because this game has pre-rendered backgrounds, but they didn't. To me, they didn't look the same as like Final Fantasy's pre-rendered backgrounds. They looked different. They looked like they weren't as high res to me. Am I right there? Like it felt like a little bit of a lower resolution on the pre-rendered, and I was kind of confused because Resident Evil also did pre-rendered backgrounds, especially that like GameCube one or whatever. And you can tell so you said they built the 3D models, then made them into 2D sprites after taking images of them. Is that
yes? You take a 3D scene, and then you, in your editing program, like say Blender today, you pick an angle by moving a camera object or whatever, aiming at a spot, and then you like take a snapshot of it. Basically, we call that baking.
Yeah, I do some game dev, so I get like baking with lighting and stuff like that. I'm not like a pro game dev, but I understand the terminology.
And they'll put some of the lighting into it, into that background image, but then they'll also layer on top sometimes sun rays or the moving water that you see.
Yeah, it just felt like, I feel like the pre-rendered backgrounds, they just weren't done as well as I thought they could have been, but it sounds like they took a different approach. Yeah, only because I'm comparing it to Final Fantasy. And maybe it's because I haven't played the original, FF7 in a while, so maybe they're just as bad. But I think they weren't like, let me rephrase that. I don't think they were bad. They just weren't as impressive as I thought they could have been. Like, because I remember just seeing the pre-rendered backgrounds in the Final Fantasy games, and I thought they were really impressive. And then seeing this, and I didn't feel the same way. And maybe it's because like I said, I haven't played those games in a while. So maybe if I compared them side by side, they would look exactly the same. I'm kind of actually interested in bringing up a screenshot so I can like see it. But yeah, I was a little like, I don't know. I didn't really feel it. What about you, Wob?
I found that the smaller interiors were wonderfully done. Now, when it comes to me looking at like video game art, mostly pixel art, and to me, this kind of feels like pixel art. If I have to guess or question what something is, then it's not done well. The small interiors for this game, when the camera's not too far back, look really well done. Like they're almost immersive. Like you go into an old lady's house in the earlier game, and you can just see like small little details all over, and it feels like she actually lives there. But then you get somewhere like Lowen, and you go to the giant house that has like 9 exits, and it's this big dollhouse cutout, and you see NPCs here and there, and I'm like, I have no idea what is in some of these rooms. I think that's a barrel. That looks like a barrel. Can I interact with this barrel? You know what? I don't even want the stupid Stardust, whatever.
Okay,
but
so
overall,
it was like scene
I thought
by
it was
scene. for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now, this is one of my gripes was, I know that they were trying to go with something unique, but I feel like some of, as was established, some of the interior layouts and area layouts feel unnecessarily convoluted. Like, I had no idea how to get from, after beating the spoilers, the green dragon, how to get from the hole to the south side so that I could go to the Shrine of Shirley. And I was kind of like, how the hell did I figure this out when I was younger? Where in the hell am I going?
Yeah, the navigation is not always so obvious, like hitting those rocks on the side, for example, in that area.
I do have to say I appreciate that they have an interact icon. I think that really helped a lot, because if that wasn't there, this game would feel like an absolute like cluster of a maze.
I think this game would benefit like a lot from like you guys know Moguri mod for Final Fantasy 9? Do you guys know of that one? Basically, it takes all the pre-rendered backgrounds and it turns them all high res, and it's just gorgeous. Like, it's just amazing.
Oh man, Final Fantasy 9's already beautiful.
Dude, and it makes it the Moguri. If you guys go and play Final Fantasy, I highly suggest Moguri mod. It's a very similar to the Severed Chains for this one. You would appreciate it, I think, Drew. I think you'd really like it. And so it takes those high and it kind of makes them like high res. Like, you remember when you were a kid and you first played like these games and you're like, wow, like the graphics are so great. You remember that feeling?
Tomb Raider's boobies. Yep.
Yeah, Tomb Raider's boobs. And then you go back and you're like, oh, like that wasn't as good as I remember.
Oh, those are just blocks.
Yeah, but the Moguri mod and kind of like makes you relive that, where you're like, oh yeah, these are beautiful. Like, you get that same nostalgia.
Yeah.
And I love that. So I think this game would greatly benefit. I think it would be super cool.
The devs were really over ambitious in this way. Like, what they were building should have been either a PlayStation 2 launch title, especially because the FMVs were built in widescreen already. It could have been like the debut widescreen RPG, would have been amazing. But they, like, all these scenes that they took the image snapshots for, like, you're seeing this like really crushed down version of the originals. So a lot of that quality is lost, and we didn't necessarily have large TVs back then, and the scan lines and all that stuff. So it's almost impossible to appreciate a lot of the details they did put into the game, because you can barely see Dart. I remember playing on PS1 how pixelated the 3D models were even in battle, unless you had a really close camera angle. Like, the lack of anti-aliasing ruined the 3D models completely. Like, that was just a big issue with the PlayStation in general, compared to an N64. But a lot of their work, I feel like, was unfortunately wasted because the PS1 couldn't handle it. They had like 600, 700 different background images to jam into the game, and the FMVs took up a lot of space, and everything had to get crushed down so much. Like, there's so much other work we probably could have appreciated if it was just a PS2 launch or even a PC game. Now, I'm not saying that is what was going to ever happen, but if it was a PC game, they could have afforded to make the graphics much higher. They put so much money into the graphics budget, you know?
One thing I have to say that I've completely started to understand and 100% agree with since replaying this game again is the want for a remake. Like, I remember looking a couple years ago and they're like, this game needs a remake so bad. I'm like, yeah, I remember Legend of Dragoon. It wasn't that bad. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, I could see a remake. But playing through it again now, I'm like, yeah, I get it. I see why this would be beautiful remade. Like, I could see there's a whole new passion project, like bring it to the vision that they always wanted, because you can tell they were over ambitious. They definitely wanted to make this, and they did make it something very beautiful and full of passion. But I think now with the tools they have, a remake of this game would just be, it would skyrocket right up to one of the greatest for me.
Yes,
they could certainly use the treatment. Like, if just various things get tuned up, and if this time other things aren't left in the dust while the graphics get all the quality assurance attention, because those other things, those were some of the bad points I were going to mention. Just needs a facelift, and this was an opportunity for a long time. In fact, like around the PS2 time, we didn't have a lot of talk about that on the internet yet. The fandom was smaller at launch and in the first few years, and we didn't talk about it. But then, starting with the PS3 era, lots of clamoring for a remake, lots and lots of clamoring. Once we knew what remakes were, we started asking for it, and then PS3 came and went. PS4 comes along. We'd love to have a remake on PS4. The graphics would be freaking jaw-dropping. And with the sizes of Blu-ray discs, wouldn't have to worry about size anymore of the game assets.
Exactly.
And then that came and went, and then PS5 has basically now come and gone as well. And it's partly an industry thing. There's lots of layers involved in why things do or don't get a new title. But we're now well into the PS5 life cycle, and the longer it takes for a remake to get greenlit, the more it has to compete with Severed Chains. And I'm not saying that in like a selfish kind of a way. That's really just a matter of fact kind of way. We aren't necessarily professional game developers in the industry or anything, but we're doing the quality of life stuff. We're doing a lot of things that may not even go into an official remake just for time and budget constraints. You know what I mean? And right. I wouldn't want an official remake to have to compete with Severed Chains any more than it does, but because it's taken so long, we just started doing it ourselves in the only legal way that we can, basically.
Would you prefer like a remake like the way they did Final Fantasy VII's, or would you prefer like just mostly like an HD remaster quality of life type of remake?
It's a complicated answer. I'm going to cut this down as much as I can. I'll be short. I believe it can't be a remaster because that's already what made the first original game kind of be bad, in that they focus so much on graphics that the quality of the voice acting and the script and some other things completely fell to the wayside in various regards. I would rather all the other things get a proper facelift, and I think some things about the game wouldn't necessarily age well. So it feels like a remake is necessary. Plus, even if you just remaster the graphics, I'm used to a lot of remasters involving like they end up coming out in 16:9 resolution, widescreen. And if you do that with the background images, then you're literally having to create new buildings and stuff, new parts of the landscape. So that pushes it into remake territory anyway, unless I'm just not thinking about it right. So that feels like just a dead end with the remaster. Ultimately, I think a prequel is the only option going forward now because of how much time it's been, and Severed Chains is now basically going to give you either the original experience with fast load times and bug fixes, a remaster experience, or a remake experience, or beyond. Like eventually you're going to be able to load up custom campaigns. You can have custom little side stories about the knighthoods of Basil and dive into the Sergian War some more. You could have Lloyd's journey. All these things will be possible at no additional cost, so long as the modders come to use the modding API we're developing. So for me, like, the only option now is to just go straight into that ripe territory of the prequel, because although we know what happens, I mean, I know what's going to happen in some of my favorite movies, but I still rewatch them because I want to see it again. You know what I mean? And there'll be all these other things that get added into it that we never, saw before, besides those basic structures of the plot.
Right.
Yeah, looking up some images here for Severed Chains, like the graphics, like the character models look so much better.
Yeah.
My goodness.
That's one of the main things is restored asset quality. You finally get to see the 3D models either on the what we call submaps, that the developers also call it submaps, the background images. Even more so in battle, those are more detailed. We can't do much with the FMVs. They're just artifacted to hell, so we can't make them look too much better without an AI upscale or making new custom renders, which is a lot of work. But we also can restore other things. We can do more precise math in the calculations, which means the animations are much smoother. Perfect example, look at Rose's idle animation in battle. Her sword is just kind of like jaggedly skipping in the air. And if you look at it in Severed Chains, it's perfectly smooth. It's jaw-dropping, and that's without 60 FPS in battle. That's coming later. We also have the restored sound quality, which, if I remember right, goes beyond the quality of the soundtrack that was released. So there are a lot of things to appreciate there.
I love the high-res options.
Yeah, high-res options.
It was really nice.
One of
If
my
you,
favorite things while replaying recently was Shanna's bow doesn't have a string.
yeah, it's just this
So
ethereal arrow.
Yeah, it just like there's no arrow, there's no strings. It just like pulls her arm back and like it just curves and then straightens back out. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's just like this magic arrow, and it's, why is this a physical attack?
I did remember when I messaged you, there was that they have some weird idle animations, kind of like you were mentioning.
Mhm.
There's the original idle animations. So even in the severed chains, like you would see them. Like I thought her clothes were moving, and I guess it's a breathing animation. And I was
Yes.
like,
Wish they'd move off.
yeah,
The whole torso just shifts left and right like one space. So, on smaller TVs, it looked fine. They were designing it with that in mind, but it looked bad enough, for modern expectations that when we did our little, we were doing our usual tech demo in increments every so often, we would just re-record the intro sequence with Rose and Fairbrand. And the breathing animation looked so horrible that one of our team members gave Rose a custom idle animation with natural torso breathing. It looked way better.
Oh, good.
We made a custom asset for that.
imagine
That's
having
funny.
to do that for the whole game.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool that you did that. But yeah, I remember being like, "Wait, is my game broken? Like, why is this character like? Why are they
I
moving?"
remember
so
seeing
weird?
you posting
Yeah.
that in the group. Yeah. And I'm laughing at it.
Little things
I'm
like
nah,
that.
she's breathing.
Little things like that are really dated, and maybe it was just that they were inexperienced at first and they got better later, kind of a thing, and they just made that model early on. But if you look at the faces of the main characters, the characters you play as, you look at Dart's face, you look at Shauna's face, especially Albert's face. He has no mouth. Like, why can't he have a mouth? And then you look at these various NPCs, which Cyber Chains can help you with. Not only does it make it easier to see these models, but you can also use our debugger tools. The debugging system lets you move the 3D models, rotate the 3D models, and enlarge the 3D models. So you get a really nice look at the texture work. And it's criminal how some NPCs look. They have so much facial definition. They have shadows. They have beards. They have all this stuff. They have clearly defined eyebrows. And Dart and the rest of the playable cast have just the lowest looking polygonal faces with almost no definition to them. It hurts so much.
Why did they spend so much time on the other characters?
Yeah, like these are like NPCs you see maybe once, and you're ever only going to see like a pixel of them in the original game, let alone Severed Chains. It's still hard to see unless you actually go out of your way. I'm assuming they just got better at it over time, and they didn't go back and redo the originals that they started with. I don't know. Like, you're going to see the assets you're going to see the most should get generally the most attention, right?
That's
Yeah,
funny
I
because
would assume.
the picture you shared with Lavitz, he looks like a Lego hit man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
And I'm
uploaded
looking at it
those.
now, I'm like, oh man.
I uploaded those to compare the pre-rendered backgrounds to kind of see what I was kind of talking about, like why I felt I had mixed feelings about it, just to show like kind of the comparison there, because that Final Fantasy VII was one of my first pre-rendered background games that I ever played. So when I saw this, I was like, I just didn't feel like they were fine, and I think you were right, Bob, that some scenes are a lot better than others, and I think that it's almost like they try to put so much detail in stuff, like it almost, because as you can tell with the difference with Final Fantasy VII and that, it's like Final Fantasy VII didn't put as much detail in the things that maybe that didn't matter. Like, for example, they don't have any breathing animation, in FF7. They did in Legend of Dragoon. And I think you kind of mentioned this, Drew, is that maybe they were almost too ambitious on certain things, and they kind of came out not as good as maybe the developers originally wanted it to. I think
Exactly. Like, when you combine a lot of ambition with a lot of inexperience, you can still make something great, but you greatly increase the likelihood of things falling through the cracks. And if it's just a few little things, fine, but you usually don't want to take on something of this magnitude. And also, like, put it in a console that can not really handle the work you're putting into it. Like, if it was a PS2 game, this kind of work would belong in a PS2 launch title. Absolutely. PS1, no way. it's what they had, so I get it, but it was not a natural fit in that way. Plus, the inexperience. They had the team had made multiple different kinds of games. Like if you look at Japan Studios history, they have a whole myriad of stuff they've made, and it's generally beautiful stuff, but they don't have necessarily a single specialization like other studios might, and that kind of factors in, I think. They had never worked on a project this big together before. Like the team was incredibly small at first. They were just, a small group. They were shunted, some of the team members, I don't remember the details, from something else, and then it grew and it grew and it grew, and they added on Polyphony Digital to do some of the FMVs. They would later go on to do Gran Turismo, as you may know. It was just a big hodgepodge, this big melting pot that was Japan Studio at the time for this specific game and a few others.
Ape Escape and Eco they were making at the same time, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a really weird situation.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so there's a lot of complications there. Then I would assume,
Yes.
So,
I have one small gripe from the game. One so this is pretty much my last bad one, but it's because I'm spoiled from, again, Final Fantasy. But I was a little disappointed finding out that there's no different weapon variants.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you get a new weapon, it's just more damage. Whereas like even in Final Fantasy VII, like you get the nail bat and you equip it, and Cloud's holding a nail bat.
Yeah, they all have custom models, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish we had that.
Yeah, so Legend of Dragoon, it's a small little, my last small little gripe of it, but I definitely felt like that would have made it feel a lot better. And that kind of pairs in with the equipment. Equipment feels just simple enough, like it's pretty much just upgrade, and then unless you know what you're doing for the bosses, then the accessories kind of just like, okay, well, I want to do more damage, or I want to take less damage. I liked how simple the equipment was, though. That was a nice change of pace for me personally.
They were marketing the game towards kids, so it kind of had to be simple in a lot of ways.
Yes.
I think like for like a starter RPG type thing like this, like the time they had and the crew that they had for it, I think it turned out remarkably like well done, all things considered.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so I had a couple more points. Basically, we already went through the edition. We hammered the edition thing. The music. We haven't talked about the music. How do you guys feel about the music?
Thank you. Personally, pretty mid, pretty generic fantasy-esque music. I felt like some of the scene changes too didn't really properly mix with the music they were trying to address it with. Like it didn't feel like the music fit some of the scenes emotionally. But the music, I can't say is bad. It's just if I was sitting there reading a book and I put on background fantasy music and a Legend of Dragoon song was in there, I probably wouldn't notice it, as opposed to like Pokemon, Final Fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons type things, like Warhammer. I'd probably notice a lot of those, right? Wow. But I just only really the battle themes stuck out to me. Okay. Everything else just kind of fit. Like it wasn't offensive. It was more complimentary. It just didn't wow me,
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But what about you, Drew?
So Wilby's not wrong. Although I love all the tracks, I'm programmed to say that. I love all the music. Some tracks are weaker than others, and sometimes they don't necessarily match the scene either. It's a complicated situation again. So long story short, they had two different composers work on the music for the game. I think one focused on battle, one focused on like the towns and dungeon stuff. The battle stuff, I believe, was Takeo Maratsu, now deceased, rest in peace. And then for most of the other stuff, it was Dennis Martin. And to me, that might have ended up leading to a little bit of disconnect between the area themes and the battle themes. If it was a single composer, you're making your area themes and how to make the battle themes synergize with that, I feel like. But it was an interesting blind test for them, and I think it still worked out pretty well. And setting aside what you might prefer in genres of music, I think it was pretty fun. You have this like kind of electric rock, techno almost hybrid going on with the battle stuff, and a lot of like melodic groove feeling so that they don't feel as repetitive and they're more enjoyable for long listens. The number one thing for me, though, would be that unlike a lot of games, the soundtrack in LOD, like each area felt like its own place. A lot of soundtracks, like part of the point of a music album from a traditional band is that the tracks may flow into each other. They're meant to be listened one after the other, or they all sound similar because it's, the same people on the same instruments, with just, a different scenario or whatever for the lyrics. And so for me, LOD is unique in that way that although the battle tracks naturally sound similar to each other, the area tracks actually feel more worldly, like they're all from different places instead of sounding samey with each other. I think that's one of the greatest strengths of the music in general. And it's worth noting that although it was really rudimentary at the time, they could only do so much. They put in ambience as well. There's ambient tracks in the game. Sometimes you'll always have that music over the top in most cases, but underneath you'll have like seagulls or the water waves or the cavern ambience, whatever you would call that. You hear that ooh sound. Even in Helena prison, you hear people getting tortured. They're going, ooh, like that really helps.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, it helps people feel alive. Like I'm actually, I'm trying to expand my YouTube channel. One of the things I want to do is just kind of as a joke, but also seriously, I want to do like 1 or 6 hour ambient upload to my channel that is listening to people be tortured in Helena prison.
Like 6 hours of
that would be great.
6 hours of Vietnam War for relaxing and studying.
Okay. Maybe hitting a little too close to reality there.
Put me right to sleep.
Yeah. Things to fall asleep to, right? Exactly. So, but that's the layers that I think are really awesome about LOD is you've got that worldly music and you also have the ambience underneath. And for what it was starting in 1996, I think they did great, but I do agree that there are some like weak links in the chain.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. I'm kind of in agreement with both of you. I think so. The music isn't bad by any means, not at all. It's good music. No. It's good music. I think the tracks were great. Again, this is the unfair comparison that it gets related to something like Final Fantasy, because Nobuo Uematsu, what is like one of the greatest composers of all time. He is like what people consider the GOAT of like composer music. And so, I mean, at least I do. He's one of the top, he's one of the top dogs. So it's not really fair to compare the music in a way because, you're kind of comparing like, I don't know, like a supercharged Mustang to like a Toyota Prius or something. Both are great cars, but one's going to go a lot faster than the other.
Yeah. And consider that Dennis Martin hadn't really done video game music before.
Oh, that's what it was. Thank you. I knew there was something about that name that I couldn't remember.
First time, I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Blew it out of the water. Considering that fact, that's quite amazing. And that definitely, I don't think that was Nobu's first time. So it's like, he had
it's
probably.
Like, hey, this guy playing basketball outside is doing pretty good, but LeBron's better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's not really fair, man. So
that's fine.
But it was good. I like, theme I really actually like a lot. It's Dart's theme. I think I love that theme. That it's like this upbeat, like hero theme, and it's like you're ready to go conquer the world. I really enjoy it. It's like it got me kind of like going. It's like this like passionate. Like I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm ready to save the world. Like
it's like it lights a fire in you.
Yeah, exactly, dude. And it's okay. I see what you
ties in with the character, right?
Yeah.
It ignites something within you.
Yeah, it does, and it's a really good theme. Shauna's theme was good. The City of Bale was good. So there was plenty of good tracks. There's good tracks. So I would actually put it on the good points of this game. It's just that unfair comparison when you relate something like Nobu and these guys, Dennis Martin. But yeah, considering the fact that's his first video game, that's great. Honestly, really, really well done. And so I want to go into some of the. I don't have any more good, bad, or actually, nope. I almost missed one. Okay,
what is it?
So there's. Please. there's a point in this game that I got to where a certain individual dies. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, it shouldn't have been him. It should have been someone else. Okay. Oh, I should have even said it should have been that person. Okay. Like I liked that person so much, and they were one of my favorite people of the game. And
honestly, I kind of loved that because they made it so hard. They made it worse, you know?
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made it emotional for sure. It was like that whole Aerith, scene.
Kind of felt like Aerith, but the problem I have with this is that like it almost feels shunted because that person kind of gets just like completely replaced.
Yeah,
for the sake of game design, they had to do that. Yeah, that was the simplest thing they could do.
In fairness, Square was ballsy as hell to just straight up kill a character, like a permanent character, just gone, and she's your healer. Just okay, well, she's gone, and you're kind of just like, whoa, what?
Careful.
I might want to play that game.
Wait, do you know this? Do you know the spoiler?
No way. Somebody doesn't know the spoiler.
I probably don't know the spoiler, so spare me.
Wow.
Dude, you're like the first person I've ever heard of.
That's the first person in my adult life that has ever said, no, I don't know about this. Like,
okay.
It means and everything.
Good thing I focus on FF12, isn't it?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I thought the whole internet knew. That's amazing. That you're in for a treat. You're in for
my apologies, but
you're
like you're an enigma to me now.
So I guess I'll find out eventually.
You're gonna know when you play it too. You're gonna
it's gonna be it doesn't matter if you expect it. Doesn't matter.
Pretend Sid's the healer.
Okay, but yeah. So yeah, this individual, in Legend of Dragoon gets killed, but I just, it
hurts.
I wish it was someone else.
I'm gonna be honest, Lance. You don't know what you're in for.
Okay, I mean,
there's definitely more. There's definitely more that happens later.
You know what I do like about games though, like this, is that they are not worried to kill important characters. I have complaints about games that are worried about doing that, and I have complaints about games.
Plot armor, yeah.
And anime that does that. I hate that when like you have this, and they're just so worried about getting like, okay, you think they're dead, but they're not really dead. Oh, they come back. It's like, dude, just if you're gonna do it, like at least make it to where I'm invested and I'm worried about the state of the character. Like, it doesn't mean you have to kill your whole cast, but maybe once in a while, it's like, there's a chance that this character could die. So I like that about LOD. I thought that was a good decision, even though I love that character. Yeah,
the game. I mean, you don't necessarily want to lean on this too much, but part of how you draw people in is with loss, obviously.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You don't want to kill everybody. It's like
well, unless you're Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then just send it.
Yeah. If you're Game of Thrones or like Walking Dead or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
In fairness, one of the most respectable things about George R.R. Martin is just his absolute level of not giving a crap.
Yeah.
Like guys just finished the main quest and they're just like, can we have another book? He's like, no, I'm old. Leave me alone.
Yeah. I never got into the Game of Thrones thing. But whatever.
Lots of weird sex in that one.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys, and some people think I'm kind of maybe immature for that.
Sex, yuck.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's when it's too graphic, and I'm like, I don't.
Don't even.
But yeah, anyways, so we're gonna go into the final thoughts to add. So, is there any final thoughts or things to add that you guys wanted to say before we rate the game?
I do know that Drew's going to have more. So allow me to just get mine right out of the way with. So originally,
do you know the future?
Originally, I had thought of this game as kind of something that you can go back and check out and it'll be an okay time. But I will eat crow for that because I definitely feel like I thought this game was good, but I didn't think it was one of the greats. But then the further you get in the story, the more you actually like commit to it. Especially with now that you've mentioned all the Severed Chains editions, like the auto, what are the attacks called? Additions, the auto additions, to try and give some quality of life things. With just a few quality of life things, this game is one of the greats. This game is, if you're a JRPG, RPG fan, this is definitely something to give some time to. It's
Okay.
just it definitely is better than I thought it would. Like originally I gave it a lower score, but then the further I got, the more I was just like, you know what? I have been too hard on this. And again, as I said at the beginning, that's because I was unfairly comparing it to something it's not. It's not a Final Fantasy.
Yes.
It's its own thing outright. You can compare the two, but it does it a disservice to actually compare to the PlayStation 1 era Final Fantasies. And that is what I have to say about Legend of Dragoon.
Okay. Great.
Cool.
And you, Drew?
I guess I could just summarize like my good and the bad of, generally there's a lot to like. Naturally, there were flaws because the team was inexperienced, but despite that, having like no experience as this specific team of like 100 people, they made something really special and magical. And I keep coming back to this thought that it's impossible. This game shouldn't exist. It mostly focuses on the interactivity, the cinema, and the style, and it generally does that very, very well. Even just in some of like the enemy attacks where you'd casually get a giant boulder chucked at you, and it's like, was that sticking in your pocket the whole time? Or another character will literally like pick you up, chew you up, and then spit you out, and there's actual saliva around the character. Like all these little details. It's fascinating to me. It really shines in those ways, but it's got, all those flaws in between of after chapter 1, it's uneven pacing, lack of quality of life stuff that we might expect in games these days, but you can't really fault it for that. But I really wish there was more quality of assurance with things like the voiceovers. That's partly an industry issue as well. Of course, they only got a day. They didn't get any context, but what can you do? The script could have been a little bit better. Like a lot of typos could have been corrected. The translation from Japanese could have probably been quality as well, so we wouldn't lose as much meaning of what they're trying to tell us. But they did the best they could. And it just this kind of a lightning strike situation that despite all the crowding of all the other RPGs, they got this one on the books. And although it started with a small fandom, it grew to have a cult following, and now I'd say one of the largest non-mainstream fandoms out there. And that is a fascinating achievement given that the game never got any updates. It's a linear single-player role-playing game slog that demands a lot of your time because it's a long RPG. And I think that's saying a lot. That's pretty much my thoughts. I mean, it like a lot of games deserves a fair shot, especially if it gets some tune-ups with a reverse engineered port.
Okay.
Yeah, amen.
All right. Yeah. So, I think I kind of fall into the same agreements with you both of you. Again, and I think funny enough, this is actually one of the more the podcasts that all the guests kind of agreed the most on, because I think this game, I think what it aimed to do, it did pretty well. And I think that even though it took heavy, in my opinion, it took heavy influence from Final Fantasy VII, it's not Final Fantasy VII, and it's not a Final Fantasy PS1 game. It should be on its own platform, doing its own thing. And you should, when you go to play this game, you shouldn't be like, oh, this isn't FF, whatever. You should play it with like, this is a new experience, because it is in a lot of ways. And I think that the story, as far as I've gotten, has been good, and I know it gets better. And I think that I had fun playing this game throughout that week. I really enjoyed my time, and honestly, the Severed Chains port fixed a lot of the complaints I would have had. I would have given this the original on the PS1 a lower rating, probably somewhat significantly compared to the Severed Chains port. Like it's probably bumped up like by 2 points, thanks to Severed Chains. I mean, with the auto additions, the speed up feature, the save anywhere, the short dragon mode transformation, so you don't have to watch the thing every single time. Getting rid of encounters when you don't want the encounters, the widescreen fix, the quick text. These things are just, these games, like all the small little gripes I would have had just kind of went away. And so I'm going to, that being said, I'm going to rate my experience with the Severed Chains port, and then you can automatically subtract by 2 what I would have probably rated the original game. And so with that being said, it's not my favorite RPG of all time. It's a good RPG, and I would recommend people go back and reload the game. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, a solid 7 out of 10. And I think the later I get into the game, because this, like I was saying, this is a roller coaster ride. The more I got into the game with the story, it probably would have climbed to an 8 or an 8.5, unless it gets so good at like towards the end where I'm just like mind blown and it's like a 9, But I think, this game was good, man. For what I played of it, it's a very solid 7. I love it. I love this game, and this game makes me want to beat the rest of it. There's some games like I play and I'm like, I don't need to finish it. This game I want to finish. I want to finish it, and I think it's a great game. So thank you, Drew and team, for making that port. By the way, it made it so. All that stuff made a lot of my complaints go away. I think it's so good. The port is great.
You're super welcome.
Yeah, it's. And tell your team that I really appreciate it if you want, but it was really
okay.
Great. So I don't think I'm going to go into the comments too much, unless you guys want to. We'll probably just go into the riddle for the game for next week. So the next week, the next week's game riddle is going to be: trapped inside panels where ink meets zone, this hero draws punches and fights all alone. Sketchy foes rise with a penciled out plan. Can you escape the hand of the man? Do you guys know?
I do.
No, you do? Really?
Yeah.
Did you? Wait, wow. Is it because you saw the roster from the riddle?
No, it just sounds exactly like a game that I know.
Whoa. Okay.
Does it happen to be on the Sega?
It does. Holy smokes, dude. There's no I would have never guessed this. I'm surprised that you know this. Okay, Wob, go ahead and tell people what it is.
Next week's game will be Comic Zone.
Wow, dude. So you played that game?
Yeah, man.
Wow, that's cool.
It's like a comic book side-scrolling beat 'em up. How could you it's everything a kid wants.
That's so cool. Have you played it, Drew?
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it was my first time hearing about it too. So it got submitted on the retro roster. I actually have to double check. I forgot who it got submitted by. And also, I wanted to mention that the reason I played Legend of Dragoons is because it was submitted on the retro rostered by Ariok. So thank everyone. Thank Ariok for
Ariok, submitting
that. Thank you, Ariok. Thank you for recommending such a great game. So yeah, let me look at this real quick. It was Ben Dragoon. Funny enough.
Oh, well, also what a surprise.
Also a fan of Legend of Dragoon. Submitted Comic Zone. So thanks, Ben.
Oh, okay. I see. I was expecting like it to be like Ben Comics.
No,
but that'll be next week's one. The one after it'll be like Ben Comics, and it'll just be retroactive.
I'm sure if there was like Legend of Dragoon 2, Ben would have been like all over that. But there's only one. Hopefully they do something with this IP. I think they should. I think it's a good IP.
Yeah, it's something that just needs just a little bit of love. It doesn't have to be. I mean, I know they tried to do a manga, in fairness, but like it still feels like it deserves a little more. And it's funny because it's a Sony IP. Like Sony made it in house. It's literally just Sony's. Except for the cinematics done by whom? Sorry, Drew.
One of the teams was Polyphony Digital.
Thank you. That's that. Yeah. I mean, a little bit of help, but like everything's still Sony. And Sony owns what they want. But no, they'll just give us another Last of Us, I'm sure.
We're hoping that all the things we do in the community, whether it's, just coming together in general through our community website or the various projects we do, especially now with Severed Chains being a signature project, alongside our other attempts like the petition, that we can convince them. But that will always be a bonus. We're just, happy to like curate our own fandom and our own goings on and be self-sustaining in all those ways. Like that alone is already amazing. If it convinces them, that would be an amazing bonus. Hopefully that's the case eventually.
See, I have a theory that that's why we have Oblivion remastered. Is
Fair
because
enough.
the Sky Oblivion team had been working so hard and so long that they had such a big following that, I mean, it's Bethesda, like ZeniMax has like Microsoft money, and it's just like, these guys have been working a long time. Why don't we drop something?
I hope so, man. I hope they hope they do something. And so I wanted to give you both the opportunity to plug your socials. Drew, do you want to plug some of your socials real quick?
Yes, please. I put them over here. So for me personally, again, I'm Drew Universe, Drew for short. I have my own website, drewuniverse.net. That's where I have a little blog, and I talk about, general life things or games or LOD or whatever. And some of the projects that I'll be working on coming up, I'm pretty excited about. I've got a YouTube channel, which I plan to soft launch ASAP. I've already done a few things with it, but I really want to expand and go well beyond Legend of Dragoon. Like Legend of Dragoon is where I got all my experience, curating for a community in all the different ways. And now I want to apply that to my other favorite games and other mediums and things. So that should be pretty exciting. That's also at Drew Universe. I've got a Discord server. I don't know where to put a link for that, but that's also on my website. And then if people really like the kind of work that I do in video game archivism or lore mastery or any other thing, I have a Ko-fi page that I accept donations for. That is kofi.com/Drewniverse without the U in the middle.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Go check out that Severed Chains port too, everyone. It's totally worth it. If you're going to play this game, that's the version you should play. And then Wob, sorry, Drew.
Hello.
I just forgot to put that URL. I apologize. That is legendofdragoon.org. And at the top of our nav bar, you can click on PC port to learn about that.
Awesome. Yeah. And then Wob, where can people find you?
Mostly Retro Reloaded, believe it or not, Lance.
Ironically,
Retro Reloaded is where I've got most of my stuff done. I'm also on X and Reddit. They're both just at Wobbeart. It's all the same. I have to put the YouTube streaming, like the live streaming, on hold for a while. So hopefully next year, after everything's are settled, I'll be able to have a regular schedule. But with the wedding coming up, yes, congrats, thank you. It's all just kind of, I'm mostly here for Retro Reloaded. Yeah,
dude, and you've been a super help. So I appreciate honestly everything you've done.
Ride or die, baby.
You've been awesome. Honestly, this community's been awesome. If anybody's interested in the Retro Reloaded community, you'll hear it in the intro and the outro, where you can find us. We have a Discord. It's really just a great community. Everyone's so, passionate and supportive. It's awesome. But yeah, thank you guys both. Thank you both so much for everything, and I appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Honestly, Drew, I gotta say, you made this a much better experience with what I thought. I was coming into this thinking that I was going to be the voice of negativity, but I don't know. Just the more I heard, the more I realized that my initial scoring was wrong.
Well, that's part of the plot of LOD, isn't it? The evangelism of the Moonchild, converting everyone to that cause.
The moon. Now, that's one of the craziest things that I don't want to spoil.
There was a lot more I wish I could say, but, obviously I had to cut for time reasons. Suffice to say, there's a lot to love. There's a lot of extra lore and concept art that isn't in the core game itself that are worth looking at, that really enrich. If only it could have fit in the main game, you know what I mean? But suffice to say, I loved meeting the both of you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
It's great having you.
Thank you. Well, folks, that's game over for this episode of Retro Reloaded. Thanks for joining me on this retro adventure. If you loved today's trip down memory lane, then consider helping me keep the nostalgia alive by supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/retro reloaded. You'll get early episodes, bonus content, and a chance to pick the next game that we reload. Feel free to let me know your thoughts about the podcast, and until next time, keep those controllers charged.